Hey guys, what's up? It's Coach Carroll. Welcome to another episode of the Sales Factory. Man, I'm pumped for today in the Sales Factory. I'm honored to have Nick Friedman, co-founder and visionary behind College Hunks Hauling, Junks, and Moving, the largest and fastest growing hauling and moving franchise in the U.S. Nick and his lifelong business partner, Omar, started their company while still in college, turning a simple idea into a multi-million-dollar brand that empowers dozens of collegiate teams to provide top-grade moving and junk removal services. Nick's known not only for his entrepreneurial spirit, but also for his passion for socially conscious business and leadership development. A recognized speaker, best-selling author, and advocate for franchising, Nick's story has been featured on Shark Tank, CNBC, and major media outlets. Nick, welcome to the Sales Factory, my man.
I appreciate it. Great intro. Thank you. Made me blush.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Dude, I was pumped. Last week, I'm not sure when the team will get this episode out, but last week you and I were just at the Moving Titan Retreat, so we both shared the stage there. So I got to hear some of your strategies, some of your mindset around company culture, which I think is so important. Hard lesson I had to learn, the difference between company culture and performance culture. There's a little difference. I also know you guys had a lot of changes during COVID that you had to navigate, so I'm excited to unpack a lot of that today, man, and just have a legend here in the Sales Factory. So appreciate you coming on, man.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Let's dig
Well,
in.
let's start, man. You got the Hunks hat on, right? I gotta know, why is it upside down though? I was curious about that.
This just happens to be a friend of mine's brand here in Tampa. I'll give it a shout out called Reversed Brands. It's trendy what the kids are wearing these days, upside down and backwards. It makes it cool. So I think Baker Mayfield, the quarterback for the Buccaneers, partnered with them. So they had the upside down and backwards Bucks hat, Tampa Lightning, and the sports teams were doing it. So we jumped on the bandwagon with our brand. And always branding is one of our core values. So we're always trying to figure out fun, creative, and cutting edge ways to put it out there. So here we are, upside
So
down and backwards.
I love that. Perfect segue. I want to talk about core values, man, because this is something that took me far, far, far too long in my business. My audience knows this well, but I turned down 8 football scholarships my senior year of high school. A young entrepreneur just like you, man. Started mowing grass, built that to $3 million, sold it, transitioned into power washing and window cleaning with my company Easy Pro, which I still operate today because that is basically the lab rat for my advertising technology company. So we don't do R&D on our customers. I come up with stuff in the lab. We go inject it into Easy Pro. If it works, we take it to market. If it kills it, we go back to the lab and go back to the drawing board. And core values, man, is something that took me so long to grasp because in the early days as a blue-collar guy, I'm like, I give you a fucking paycheck. Show up and do your job, right? And I had to quickly realize that the 1950s were long ago, and that shit doesn't fly anymore. Tell us what your core values are in the company and why you think they're so important.
Yeah, so I was probably similar to you. I would say we started reading a lot of books early in the business and really try to apply what we read to what we were doing. And of course, one of the early books we read was Jim Collins' Good to Great. And he talks about a good company has core values, a great company lives the core values. He gives this what he calls a mission to Mars exercise. Imagine you're sending your best people to a foreign planet, Mars, although we may be, colonizing it sooner than we think, according to Elon at least. And he said, what are the characteristics of your best people that you would want to go represent you and your brand? And why would you select them to go represent you and your brand? And then give those characteristics behaviors or descriptors, and that becomes your core values. So my business partner and I did that exercise early on. We came up with 4 for our business. Building leaders is one. Always branding, as I mentioned, is number 2. Listen, fulfill, delight. That's our service philosophy is number 3. And then creating a fun, safe, winning team is number 4. And we think of them as sort of the wheels on the truck. They got to all roll in unison together to keep ourselves on the road to the journey we're heading towards. I also kind of equate them to like the guardrails on the road as well. Make sure we don't drive off the cliff. Make sure we don't have the wrong people driving in the wrong direction. And we have a mantra at our company. We like to say it's not what's on the walls, it's what's in the halls. And what we mean by that is it's not the nice sounding core values that are sitting on a shiny poster or the first page of the training manual, but it is truly the behaviors that we value in the people, and that behavior is what drives the culture, and then the culture is what drives the results. And
Mm.
so it took me a long time to sort of put those pieces together and figure them out. At the beginning, I think I was kind of awkwardly going through the motions and talking about them, and now they've 20 short years later they become ingrained in our DNA, where we just say this is how we do things here, but it never stops with having to reinforce them.
I love that, man. Yeah, that was for me. Ours are growth, innovation, velocity, and excellence. Growth. I think people are the happiest when they're growing. Some people go, "Well, not all people think that." I'm like, they do if they work here. And so,
Robbins, I think, says progress is fulfillment. If you're not growing, you're dying, and so that's an important one to have for sure, especially if
yeah,
you're in a
man.
sales mindset.
Yeah, innovation for us is there's always a way to do something better than the way we're doing it. Velocity is speed in the right direction because going fast in the wrong direction doesn't help us. And then the last one is excellence and showing up to do your best every single day. And then we also read that book, Good to Great, right? And so you got to live those core values. So you'll notice those are an acronym of GIVE. And so every quarter we do a GIVE project with Family Scholar House, who helps women that are single moms in bad situations. They give them a place to live. They give them education, and it's a hand up, not a handout. And so we always give back to that organization here locally every quarter. So I love it, man. I know. Just you and I sharing our core values right there. Somebody's going to get inspired that's listening to this, and they're going to go, "Oh, all right, I'm going to go figure these things out for my company." Which
And I think there's going to be two people listening, either people who don't have core values, which is actually more the exception to the norm, I think nowadays, because it's so talked about as like when you start your business, you got to define your value set. So those folks, very simple, go out and do that little mission to Mars exercise, or ask ChatGPT to help you craft your values, but make sure they really speak to you as the founder, that you are going to be passionate about bringing people to surround you with. But then there's also going to be people that maybe have values but aren't living them as consistently. And I think I don't know if it's Traction or Jim Collins that says that you want the core values shared by all, not just with all. And so I always say
ooh,
aspirationally in my company, if I pulled up on one of my trucks in any city USA and pulled up on one of the hunks, I never met him before, and said, hey, what are the core values of College Hunks? Ideally, they would know what they are and be able to give an example of what they mean or how they've lived them. Again, that's aspirational. That may not be the actual reality, but that's kind of what you want to strive for. And that's why repetition and reinforcement is so important. They say in marketing, somebody has to hear something at least 7 times before they become conscious of it.
yep.
Same thing happens with your employees. You hear business owners, in me in my early days, I was guilty of this. It's like, hey, I told you to, tuck your shirt in. I told you that 3 times already. Well, they got to hear it 4 more times for it to even register. And so I got to remind myself that now as a parent as well, because, I tell myself, I feel like I'm repeating myself to my kids. It's like, I already told you that once. But they, even younger kids got to hear it probably 27 times versus 7, as you might expect your core team. And so yeah, training's not a one-time thing. I think I heard it at the conference the other day. It's
Bradley,
not
yep,
something you did. It's something you do, and
yep.
the core values continue to be a part of that.
Yeah, man. I met Brad Lee back in 2016, and he said that to me then. And dude, that stuck. And like, so when he said it on stage the other day, I was like, as soon as he started to say it, I was like, I know where it's going. It's one of my favorite sayings. I use it all the time, man, because it makes so much sense. Uh, if we wind back, I mean, obviously now, how many franchisees you guys got? How many cities are you in? How many team members? Give people, because I know people see your brand. I see your brand here in Louisville. Like, let's give the listeners a scope of how big you guys have grown this thing.
Sure. So started from very humble beginnings, a beat up cargo van. Me and my buddy from high school, while we were in college, we borrowed the van from his mom. Like I say, 20 short years later, we've become an overnight success. We've got roughly 200 independent franchise owners in our system all across the U.S. We operate in 41 states.
Wow.
On average, a franchise will have anywhere from 15 to 20 team members. So that's roughly 3,000 or to 4,000 hunks, which team members who we refer to as our hunks, which stands for honest, uniformed, nice, knowledgeable service. You can see the periods in as makes it an
I
acronym
like
also.
that.
We're big on acronyms. And probably about 2 to 3,000 trucks as well across the system. and we'll do roughly 300 million in system-wide sales this year. So it's definitely ballooned way beyond my my realm of reach, but it's pretty crazy to think that it started with just that one beat up cargo van and a catchy name.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Coach Carroll, and I want to interrupt this podcast real quick to make sure you guys are getting your copy of the Hunter Head Game. You can go to thehunterheadgame.com and register for your copy. Everyone that registers will get a free copy of the audio book. It doesn't cost me anything to get that out to you, so it's one of the easiest ways for me to give back to the entrepreneur community. This book is really focused on the last 10 years of my life and all the lessons that I've learned along the way being an entrepreneur. I truly believe that the old world rewarded obedience, and we're in a new world that demands killer instincts. As we continue to see layoffs and we continue to see economic changes happen, the creator economy, the gig economy, I think this book will open your eyes and give you some much needed skills and a refresher. Even if you're an apex hunter already, I think there's some stuff in here that you could take away to sharpen your blade. So go to thehunterheadgame.com and pre-register for your copy. Let's get back to the episode.
It's amazing, Nick, what happens when you don't give up. There was the last podcast I had, I told the guy, I said, the guy that doesn't give up is a hard motherfucker to beat, you know?
Yeah, I heard a coach give a locker room speech at the end of a game after a crazy comeback, and he said, if you don't quit, you can't lose. And I guess the clock eventually runs out in a real sporting event, but in business, if you don't quit, there's no clock. I guess until you're in the grave.
That's it,
I actually
man.
just read the first chapter in Bradley's book, and he challenged my thinking a little bit because his first chapter he talks about you need to be maniacally impatient and forget this old notion of patience as a virtue. I actually preach something slightly different. I say you got to have urgency of effort, but you still have to have patience for the results. And the reason I say that is because you do have to give yourself a little bit of grace. You don't want to be, if you're completely impatient every single day, when are the results going to come? When are the results going to come? You're going to drive yourself absolutely crazy. You're not going to
Yeah.
enjoy the journey. At least
Yep.
I was unfulfilled at my most unfulfilled point when I got very impatient. Now I say that to say you still got to be maniacal about and urgent about the effort. So you got to get up every day and eat the glass and run through the wall and try to make the results happen. But compounding effort, micro compounding effort makes macro results. And sometimes it might take 5 months, 5 years, or in our case, 20 years for that to all manifest into something pretty sizable as most people would consider.
Wow. Where do you think that was on your timeline, Nick, of like when you were the most, I don't want to say unfulfilled, but maybe you got aggravated, stressed out, and like, for if an entrepreneur ever tells me like, no, there was never a time I thought about quitting, I'm like, you're fucking lying. Or you just started yesterday. It's like there's like what point along the timeline, man, from the beat up white van to 300 million in revenue, where do you see the deepest dip was?
Yeah. Well, ask me every other week and you'll probably get a slightly different answer. I like to say, as an entrepreneur, you're either having a breakdown or a breakthrough. And we all have a little bit of manic moments in the journey. Trying to stay steady, trying to stay even keeled is, I think, a challenge for us to get better at. The early days for sure were the hardest because we didn't have two pennies to rub together. We were trying to figure everything out. We couldn't afford talent. All the books said hire people smarter than you are, but we couldn't afford to hire those people. And we started franchising was 2008, 2009. So if you were going to pick a time in history to start a home service franchise that relied on disposable income from homeowners, that time frame in history is probably not the best time. It was like starting a business in the Great Depression. It was the peak of the housing crisis. And so I think that actually, even as dark as that was, as challenging as that was, as much as that made us want to give up, I think that was probably the best thing that happened to us as business owners because it forced us to get gritty. It forced us to become resourceful, resilient, persistent, all those sort of intangible muscles that you hear about needing to have to be successful in entrepreneurship. We had no choice. It was either like go back to school, go try to get a job somewhere, or just keep running down this path. And I like to say, if you run up against it is kind of a moving metaphor. If you run up against a big heavy piece of furniture and slam into it, you're going to break. But if you start pushing it and try to get it to start sliding, all of a sudden the momentum's going to start moving and it starts moving a little bit faster and a little bit easier. And that's sort of that flywheel effect. And I think that's what it took from the early days. But we've gone in and out of moments of grief and panic. COVID was one of them. Thought everything was going to go away that we had worked 15 plus years to build. I was hiding under my bed, sucking my thumb for a couple sleepless nights, and then obviously we had a big bounce back coming out of that. So I think that also taught me to not lose my head or not get in a panic mode, but try to be a little bit more even keeled, especially as a leader when you got, in our case, hundreds, if not thousands of people looking to us as to how we're going to react to some of the adversity and uncertainty.
Yeah, man. So I was laughing a little bit there because, and the audience can go fact check me on this. You can go to the Kentucky Secretary of State. I filed for my LLC in September of '08 for Easy Pro. So, bro, I was right there with you. And when you're brand new, you got no baseline. So like, I guess it's just a little slow. It's like, no, like it's the absolute worst time to fucking be starting a business. But I've also found that like a lot of times, man, you hear about some of the most successful businesses getting started during those times because people leave the workforce, right? They're leaving the workforce. They got to figure something out. And so they find a problem, they solve it, they build a business, and it's a beautiful thing. So that was kind of funny. I do want to kind of unpeel the onion a little bit because I was curious about you guys during COVID because like with my company, with Easy Pro, I mean, we power washed, we cleaned. And so like, dude, when everybody became like overnight germaphobes, right? Like, dude, we were bleaching down playground equipment. I mean, like it was like, it was crazy. It was a feast, not a famine. But I was curious with you guys because people just they didn't really move. Like I remember the realtors. We actually moved like in like April of 2020, and the guy like that showed us our house. He was like in the other room, and he would stay in the other room. He'd let us look in this room. He'd like, okay, now you can come to the kitchen. I'm gonna go to the living room. Like it was like everybody's freaked out. I still remember that one day I was like pumping my gas, and I was like, man, should I don't know, and I kind of had to like snap myself. I'm like, DJ, the fuck's wrong with you, man? Like, chill out. It's like, it was a wild time, but like, talk to us a little bit about your all's business and how you transitioned. What are some changes you guys had to make and how did you flow through that?
Yeah, flow is probably a good metaphor to try to describe how we had to get through it. Thankfully, the shutdown in our business was pretty short-lived. It was like a 6 to 8 week window where everybody kind of went dark. We had franchise owners close their calendar because they were worried about exposure. We had franchise owners that raised their hand and said, "No, we're essential. We got to be out there helping people transportation, getting rid of their furniture that they need to make space for in their homes as junk removal providers." So we kind of had the full cross section. But then there was a big rubber band bounce back because as soon as all that stimulus money started, making its way through the system, interest rates were still low. It was almost like it was a bit of, like, to your point, a feeding frenzy. People were kind of manic with their purchase decisions. They were like, okay, now I'm going to refinance. Now I'm going to buy. And so we got pulled into that frenzy. And then, of course, we saw the inflation start to bubble up. So actually, the more challenging part for us has been these past couple of years with high mortgage rates. The 6 to 8 week window that we struggled at COVID was kind of a blip in the radar, but now we're sort of in this 3 year kind of plateau cycle where the housing market has slowed down as they've tried to temper inflation. And so that's actually been a bigger challenge where we've had to get a little bit more creative. Because one of the things I say to our team is if it doesn't rain for a couple weeks, you say we're in a drought, we're going to wait for it to start raining again, keep doing what we're doing. But if it doesn't rain for a couple years, now you live in a desert. The climate is completely different. You don't just keep doing what you're doing or planting what you've been planting. So you got to figure out a different way to thrive in that environment. And so that's what I've challenged our team with these past couple years to say, okay, 75% of people that are homeowners have a mortgage below 4%. They're probably not going to move. How do we get more business? Who else do we need to get business from? How do we get grittier with our lead conversion and just get better at converting the leads we are getting and not take each one for granted like maybe we did, right coming out of COVID because there was a ton of leads. And so I think that's adjusting to the temperature, right? You use the football analogy. If it's raining or it's snowing, you might not be throwing Hail Marys. You might be running it up the middle, being a little bit more conservative with the ball and the play calling. and try to hope that it stops raining, or figure out how to run some more aggressive plays in that weather. But that's how I would say we've approached it.
I love it, man. And did it help you guys? Because to me, I guess like in the past 3 years, you guys could pivot more towards the junk removal and less of the moving, right? Because you guys were junk removal first, added on moving later on. Do I understand that correctly?
That's right. Yeah. I would say that, admittedly, I'm a horrible mover myself. When we hired College Hunks to move our house, the only thing that broke in the process was anything that I personally put my hands on. Our professional movers did an amazing job. I shouldn't have been anywhere near any of the furniture. So when we started, it was strictly junk removal. It was getting rid of people's unwanted stuff, charging a fee for the convenience of being able to do it all for them, take the items to be properly recycled, donated, or disposed of. And then again, when we started franchising in 08, 09, we realized, okay, the housing market is really pinching people's disposable income. People aren't as mobile. We're getting asked to move, and even if moving isn't as abundant in that housing downturn, we can at least expand our sandbox a little bit and do trucks and labor. Maybe it's moving something that people want to keep. Maybe it's moving something that they want to get rid of, but let's expand that capacity and skill set. So we evolved into that. And then to answer your question, yeah, we try to always kind of lean into which of those service sectors could be more relevant to the current market conditions. And so if people are staying in place like they were during COVID, for example, we kind of marketed towards the idea of, making space for your loved ones to be able to spend time at home, or that home office, or that garage gym, clear out the clutter. And so we would get a little bit more focused on those types of approaches.
Nice. I love that, man. I want to shift a little gears here. Let's talk about technology and how you guys are using this. Obviously, with as many locations as you got, I'm curious how, if any ways, you guys are using AI in the business operations, and like how in such a blue collar, manual labor based business, what are you seeing at? Because when we were just at the Movers Titan retreat, I kind of projected, in the future, you kind of saw this with software when software came out, right? Like everybody was going to be a software business and just have a wrapper around it. I think that's where we're going with this. Is it's like you've got to have software nucleus. Like I know you guys aren't running on pen and paper anymore, right? And so it's like you've got a software nucleus with a service wrapper around it, and then now there's like this outer cap that's coming that's AI because it enhances everything. How are you guys using that? What can you share with my audience? Maybe some ways that they could borrow from you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say we did not have the luxury when we first got started and started franchising of having some of the off the shelf platforms and solutions that now exist for both service businesses in general, and then even more specifically for the move industry. So the fact that people are doing that now, I think, gives independent movers and startup movers a little bit more of a accelerated pace into business. They don't have to design something from scratch, which we did. We basically built our own proprietary platform. We call it Hunkware, that allows us to book the appointments, price the jobs, follow up with the customers, and manage the teams and the crews. And of course, since we're a franchise system, we book everything centrally through our call center, through our website. And then the franchise owner is able to log in and see their specific local job boards and so forth. To answer your question relative to AI, I would say it's still relatively fragmented the way we're approaching it. We're trying to look at all the use cases as it relates to how can we do things more efficiently, more effectively, make our jobs easier, or make us more productive. And so an example of that would be we attempted automated AI answering in our call center. Didn't work well on the sales side. Obviously, kind of created some customer friction, some points of contention with our franchise owners. We pulled back on that initiative, but we are provisioning it a little bit more on the customer service side to help alleviate some of the man hours of just taking calls and handling where's the truck, or want to reschedule my job and so forth. We've actually built some bots, I guess you could call them, that are able to execute repetitive manual tasks and administrative functions.
Nice.
So like closing the books, we operate a bookkeeping service for all of our franchise owners. We're actually about to start providing that to small independent business owners and other franchises outside of College Hunks. And so implementing that sort of AI bot to be able to close out the books and alert a human when there's something that doesn't add up or doesn't align. We've been able to utilize that as a feature. I know that we both mentioned we have a mutual colleague in Tommy Mello. I know he's been pretty at the forefront of some of the AI solutions, like Rilla Voice, where you can, do the field listening or,
Mm-hmm.
the automated dialing and lead follow up to make sure that you're consistently following up before the lead kind of dissipates. And so we're trying to implement some of those tools as well. So I look at it as kind of like this wide toolkit. Obviously, just from a personal standpoint, I encourage everybody in our organization to use ChatGPT and Copilot. But I also encourage them, don't let it replace your critical thinking, your creative thought, or your decision making. Use it
Yeah,
as a
man.
sounding board, use it as another person at the table. But I get pretty frustrated when I get an email from a team member and I see that he just literally copied and pasted it from ChatGPT. I was like, I mean, come on, dude. You could have at least put made it the font look like you wrote it. Like, I understand. I appreciate the efficiency, but I do want your human touch on whatever you're having the AI produce for you.
I love that, man. So at the retreat we were just at, when I was on stage, I gave my 10-80-10 framework, and so I don't know if you heard that or not, but I want to go ahead and repeat it for the people that obviously weren't there. The 10-80-10 is you've got to have 10% input on the front side, let the AI do 80% of the heavy lifting, and then 10% revision and oversight on the back side. And so on the input side, we tell the AI who it is, what we're looking to accomplish, the must that we got to get out of the response, and then the format that we want the response to be in. We let the AI run, and then on the backside, we're proofing it, making edits, right? Like the number of times, sometimes people, I've seen these cases where they'll have like a 3-page draft and they want to change one sentence and they give it back to ChatGPT to make the one. I'm like, dude, just put it into Google Docs and change it yourself. It's more efficient, right? So, and then for me, there's also the run aspect, right? Like, hey, if it's rocking and rolling, like run with it and take it and go. I will tell you, man, one of the things I've noticed is like being on sales calls, if people were doing more of these like custom AI solutions where I feel like businesses are kind of waking up to it, right? They're like, and then like once you get on Chat GPT, you have this like, can it moment, which is like, well, can it do this, and this too? And so what I've actually used, I use a product called Fathom, who's like right now is inside the Zoom room with us, does note taking. And then what I do is I take the full transcript of the Fathom, and in the call with the client, I'm doing discovery and conclusion call real time, going, well, here's your problem, here's how we would solve it, and this is what that would look like at these price points. So take that transcript, give it to ChatGPT, and it's pumping me out a multi-page proposal that would take me, an hour or two to work on and type out by hand, especially because I'm like fucking dyslexic, and I'm like most entrepreneurs, I got ADHD, right? So I'm gonna get pulled in 9 different directions, and so it's like I think there's a lot of opportunity for people to use it that way. I am curious though, Nick, if you don't mind sharing. We don't have to say, I don't want to put anybody on blast, but like I'd be curious because Allie does AI voice as well. What were some of the problems that you guys saw that you had trying to roll a voice solution out? Because I'm natively curious about that.
I think moving more than junk removal, but moving is still a very personal, somewhat invasive experience. You're not just letting somebody into your house to, go into work in one area of the house. Like you're bringing these strangers into your home that could take the whole day and you're spending the whole day with them. So there's got to be a level of trust building, value building, just your people are stressed out when they're moving. So I think just people were getting a little bit of frustration that they weren't sort of being heard in a human sense with
Mm.
empathy and compassion and listening to solving their needs. And then the other thing on junk removal, I would say it's more of a sales uh, process where there is value needing to be built because people are calling many times they're either don't realize how much it's going to cost to get rid of their stuff or they think it's going to be a different process. And so we felt like we were losing sales by relying on the AI. We didn't want it to be order taking. We wanted it to be sort of order making and sales making. So that's what made us scale it back. But there are some tools, I believe we're using it or at least testing it. I don't know the name of it, where there's got some AI listening and it can give like some whispering prompts to our sales reps, like, how to help close the deal. Whether it's popping up on the sales rep screen or even whispering in its ear, like some
That's
things to
wild.
say, like, kind of God mode or whatever, like giving it some tips to close the deal. But the other thing that you said that made me think of one of the use cases also is, can it do this? Something that I've been very happy with is using ChatGPT to help me evaluate certain key roles that we're hiring for. And what I mean by that is, we come up with a scorecard. We actually use ChatGPT to help us come up with and refine what the scorecard looks like for the role. And then we get all these data points in the interview process. We got the resume, the reference checks, the interview notes. We do a case study with key executive functions. We do personality profiling. So being able to, it's hard for me to like look at all these different pieces and put them together like a 3D puzzle. So I'll throw them into ChatGPT and ask it to kind of just break down uh, in its basic form pros, cons, red flags, recommended interview questions based on those gaps. And if we've got multiple candidates we're comparing and they're getting to the final stage, helping
I like
me
that.
contemplate how these two might function and where they might excel, where they might need some support and air cover. So that's been
That's
actually
cool.
really important, because I just think talent, especially at any level, but especially at where we are now, and we're trying to 3x our business, 4x our business to become $1 billion brand.
Let's
We've got to
go.
get, elite level people. I always say, when it comes to people, you know, I played basketball in college. It was Division III. If you looked at my resume and you were trying to hire a basketball player, you might say, "Oh, he played basketball in college. We could hire him." But if we're trying to win an NBA championship, I wouldn't, score a point, let alone maybe get two dribbles in an NBA game, right? You're looking
Yep.
for a LeBron or a Kobe, right, type performer. And so as I think about, like, we're trying to become $1 billion brand, we need to look for a new level of talent and or develop our existing talent and evaluate, can they make it? And so I think leveraging any tool you can to really identify what type of talent you're getting. Is it a D3 talent, or is it a NBA championship talent?
Yeah, man, I couldn't agree with you more on that. One of my favorite things to do with ChatGPT too is like these things are programmed to be agreeable, right? It wants to give us what we want from it. And so oftentimes like I'll have it run a scenario like that where it's like, "Hey, here's all the stuff I've got on Monica. Tell me why I should hire Monica." But then once it gives that to you, say, "Cool, now play devil's advocate. Tell me why I shouldn't hire Monica." And let it play both sides of that coin. And then once it's done that, it's ran that analysis, it's like, "Okay, now compare and contrast and make a recommendation based on your findings."
What a
That's
time to be
like,
alive, man. What a time to be alive. This is
it's
a
nuts,
crazy,
bro.
crazy time, no doubt.
You've got we got genies in our pockets, man. You know, I I say that a lot of times, there's three levels that people will use AI. The lowest level is like, "Hey chat, where should I go to dinner tonight and get sushi?" Right? I'm like, you got a fucking genie in your pocket. You got three wishes. That's your first wish, is for it to tell you where to eat dinner, right? So like that's the lowest level. The next level is from an analysis standpoint, which is what Nick was just talking about. What I'm talking about, an analyze. The top level to me though is on the strategy side, which is what Nick's talking about there as well. Is like, after they analyze it, now help me strategize. And I still, man, I'm super bullish on the legal side of work. Now, once you guys get to Nick's level, like this dude's got attorneys on deck, right? But I'll tell you, I had a fitness center when I was 27 years old. I bought it. I grew it 300% 18 months, and then I had a real estate agent clean my clock because I didn't have an attorney at the time. Dude promised me there was stuff in the contract that there wasn't, and I ended up losing $500,000 worth of real estate in a six-figure business at the age of 27, and it was like, man, it killed me, right? I
Even
thought the
just
world.
understanding what the hell's in these operating agreements, or the franchise agreements. So, just give me the Cliffs notes at a middle school or high school learning level and break it down for me, so I don't have to sit here and read 200 pages. Like, what are the
Bingo.
pitfalls that I might step into? Give me some counter, edits that you might recommend. So to your point, 10-80-10, let it do the 80% of the work, then pay the attorney for the final 10, as
That's
opposed
it.
to paying those big hourly wages for the 80% or whatever.
Absolutely, man. Because that's the problem. Like with attorneys, is like, God bless them. We all need them, right? They're the ones that keep all the CEOs out of jail and out of problems. But it's like, boy, they love billable hours, and so like if you can clean a document up to where you got it 80% of the way there, I mean, you're gonna save a ton of money. And for small businesses, man, a lot of times CPAs and attorneys, they're your biggest asset, but they're oftentimes some of your biggest expenses on your P&Ls. So I love that, man. I love that. I always like to ask, any good books you've read lately, man?
You know, the book that I've got, where's my backpack? I don't have it right here to pull up for you, but Beyond Entrepreneurship 2.0 by Jim Collins. I didn't even
Ooh.
know about this book existed.
I never heard about that. I've heard good to great, but not.
So somebody recommended it to me. Basically, it's one he wrote that kind of, I think, summarizes all his material and books into one book, and then he kind of re-released it a couple years ago. So to me, it was kind of a reminder, reinforcement, refresher on all of the amazing Jim Collins material that he's got in all his different book series. The Flywheel, the Right People, Right Seats, the Vision, the core values, and everything else that comes along with it. So I've got a bunch of dog ears on that and things circled just because I think it helped refresh my memory. We hadn't really ever finalized the flywheel for college hunks. So that's actually our theme for our annual franchise conference this year, is the flywheel effect and the different
Nice.
modules that go into driving our college hunks flywheel. So that I like books that are actionable. Obviously, it's always fun to stimulate your mind with theoretical and things that get you thinking and so forth. But I like stuff that I can take and apply to the business today.
I love it, man. I love it. We're about out of time here. I do want to touch on franchising. It's something that's interesting to me. I've often thought, I'll build this tech company really big and sell it, and then like I'll go back into Pookie in the Sandbox in my power washing business, and I'll go franchise that thing out and then roll it out. Right? Talk to me about franchising. Why did you guys choose to do that over a corporate structure or ownership? And what are maybe some of the do's and the don'ts that you guys have learned along the way, both as the franchise and some things that you guys have seen with franchisees?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we could do a whole podcast about just that, but I'll give you as much as I can in sort of a rapid fire sequence. I think we got into franchising with a little bit of a naive, almost glamorized view of what it really was. We had heard the term, we knew about McDonald's. It seemed like, you heard this word royalties and you heard this other word called passive income. So all of that sounded really exciting and fun and glamorous when I was, busting my butt running a moving and hauling business in one market and dealing with the headaches of running a business day to day. And so I think we got into it with a little bit of glamorized view of what it would be. The reality is franchising is a phenomenal expansion and capitalization strategy to grow a brand, to grow business across a wide section of markets. But it's not a fast way to riches, if you will, because they don't tell you until you have 50 or 100 franchisees, you're really not making much money because you're taking a small percentage of those revenues, and that's until your royalty stream is at a massive, critical mass. It's not enough to cover your overhead to support and sell the franchises. So we were so reliant in the early days on the upfront franchise fees, and you really don't make a profit on those because it's going back in to build the business. It's going to pay brokers and salesman commissions. It's going in to support them, the franchise owners to get started. So what I try to do when people come to me and say, hey, I've got this great, like if you came to me and said, hey, I want to franchise my pressure washing business, I would first try to understand, what are your goals? Like if you want to make this a national brand and you don't have a lot of capital to throw at it and you don't have a lot of people to throw at it, and then franchising could absolutely be a path to scale that brand. It still might take 3 to 5, 10, 15 years, but that's absolutely an opportunity you may want to consider. But if you could populate or pollinate different markets with managers, or maybe managers with sweat equity, or even managers that want to make an investment in each market, but you could still fire them if they're underperforming, and you have the capital and the human capital as well to manage those yourself, then you may not need that extra layer of complexity that franchising creates, where you're in the business of selling, supporting, revoking franchise license, and everything in between. So at the end of the day, if you have a system that works and it's replicatable and teachable, then you've got an amazing business, and you have sort of the luxury of deciding, do I want to sort of pollinate markets one at a time where I'm investing a certain amount in each market, or do I want to teach somebody else how to do it? They pay me for the rights to the systems. At the end of the day, I still got to hope that they're going to uphold the standards of the brand and perform to my level of expectations and so forth. I hope that answered the question, but it's a lot. But there's 3,000 franchise opportunities out there, everywhere from food to pet to retail to service businesses like ours and yours, and everything in between. And so there's a lot of resources and support to, just like the Titan for movers, there's a lot of support for franchisors, whether you're just getting started or emerging or established, like we are at this point.
Yeah, man, that's cool. I love that, Nick. I knew this thing was going to fly by fast, man. This has been fun. If people want to find you online, maybe they're interested in a college Hunks franchise, or maybe they just want to follow you on social to keep tabs on you. I also know you got you got a book, I think, that you've written. So it's like, what's the best way for people to kind of follow the journey, man?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a website, nickfriedman.com. And that has links to all my socials. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn and Instagram primarily, but I got my Twitter or my X, and I think TikTok's on there as well. If you're interested in learning about the College Hunks business, collegehunksfranchise.com. You can kind of poke around, learn about our franchise opportunities, or click over to the service side of the business if, like you said, just need a move or a junk haul quote. And yeah, appreciate the opportunity, man. It's like you said, the time flew by.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Well, guys, if you haven't left a review, as always, make sure if it's on YouTube or Spotify, wherever you're watching the podcast or listening to it, take a second to share this episode out, and maybe even tag Nick to tell him what your biggest takeaways were. By you sharing and leaving us reviews, it allows us to get in front of more entrepreneurs so we can help them. As you guys know, I believe that entrepreneurs solve all the problems in our country and in the world. And so by you guys sharing that out, leave us a review, we get in front of more people to help them out. And as always, I'm your host. This has been another episode of the Sales Factory. I'm Coach Carroll. Until next time, hustle, it's worth it.